In the early hours of March 8, 2014, a Boeing 777 from Kuala Lumpur to Beijing, Malaysia Airlines Flight MH370, vanished from radar just over an hour after takeoff. All 239 people on board never returned home. 10 years later, the name still weighs heavily on families and public memory. Using public records, journalistic investigations, and reports, we retrace that night's timeline and key turning points. Urur 41. MH370 departs Kuala Lumpur International Airport. Captain Zahari and First Officer Farik complete routine procedures as the plane climbs steadily. At 01:19:30, as the jet is about to leave Malaysian airspace, air traffic control hears the usual sign-off. Good night, Malaysia 370. It is the last recorded transmission from the flight. 01:20:31. The plane crosses the Igari waypoint, heading northeast. Just 5 seconds later, ground-received flight data drops to 0. At 01:21:13, radar makes its final echo near Bataan inside Vietnamese airspace, then goes silent. Another Malaysia Airlines Flight MH370 tries to call, hearing only a muffled voice, likely the co-pilot, full of static and no clear distress signal. After 02:39, neither satellite calls nor nearby aircraft receive any reply. Between 3:00 and 5:00 a.m., controllers in Vietnam, Hong Kong, and Sanya compare notes. Still, no contact. Around 07:30, Malaysia Airlines announces loss of contact at 02:40. Meanwhile, multiple coastal sightings appear. Some claim a white fireball skimming the sea, and an oil rig worker reports bright light in the sky for 10 to 15 seconds. In the first days, reports of oil slicks and metal debris appeared and were then denied. Leads in the South China Sea faded. On March 15th, Malaysia announced the flight may have been deliberately diverted, with the transponder and ACARS, its automatic data link, turned off. On March 24th, based on satellite handshakes, officials declared MH370 ended its flight in the southern Indian Ocean. Why the southern Indian Ocean conclusion? Even with the transponder and ACARS off, the plane's SATCOM kept hourly handshakes with a satellite. By measuring time gaps and angles, investigators believed MH370 flew nearly 6 more hours and ran out of fuel at about 08:19. This calculation became the core of the turn-back southbound Indian Ocean narrative. Meanwhile, military radar showed unusual maneuvers after loss of contact. Rapid climbs, steep descents, and turns inconsistent with a normal Boeing 777. The pilot suicide theory remains disputed for lack of decisive proof. Airline staff stress the good-night call came from the co-pilot in a calm tone, not a farewell. Even the claim about simulator routes faces heavy skepticism. Passengers and cargo drew attention too. Some speculated an engineering team carried sensitive technology, but no supporting evidence was released. The cargo list raised questions. About 2.5 tons of lithium batteries and telecom gear versus the early figure of just 200 kilos, plus 4.6 tons of mangosteens out of season. Registration, origin, and packaging data conflicted. Reports also said part of the cargo skipped normal X-ray checks and was placed near the cargo door. These irregularities were not fully explained in the final report. Airport footage showed lapses, alarms ignored, items not searched, but official documents treated them lightly. From March 2014, multiple nations launched an unprecedented southern Indian Ocean search. Ships, side-scan sonar, and deep-sea AUVs combed the seventh arc inch by inch. The seabed was deep and rugged. In the first year, only a few possible black box pings were heard, most disproved. Worse, one recorder's locator beacon battery had expired in 2012. The voice recorder beacon still worked, but its pulse lasted only 30 days. After that window, the hunt became a needle in a haystack. As searches failed, doubts grew. If the crash site was truly in the southern Indian Ocean, why no large, clearly linked debris? Public questions about whether the plane really turned south increased. On July 29, 2015, a Boeing 777 flaperon washed ashore on Reunion Island and was declared from MH370. Yet it raised fresh issues. The registration number showed signs of manual removal. Fracture surfaces did not fully match high-speed sea impact, plus long drift. and whether it corresponded to a 2012 wing repair in Shanghai remains debated. Models of barnacle growth plus drift even gave higher probabilities for origins nearer the northern Indian Ocean, far from the Deep South search area. Later, suspected fragments appeared in Mozambique, Madagascar, Mauritius, and Tanzania, and a murder related to returning debris was reported. Public information stayed limited. French journalist Chen Fei followed the case for 7 years. He offered a chain of what-ifs, not a conclusion. What if military exercises filled the region with surveillance that night? What if the plane's gradual silence resembled electronic interference? What if South China Sea sightings, seismic signals, and early rescue directives were overlooked? Then another path might make more sense. If those what-ifs held, he posited a scenario of intercept, mistake, information control. An initial incident or failed landing in the South China Sea, followed by a narrative built around satellite handshake arcs to shift global focus to the Indian Ocean. Years of deep-sea searching took place in the wrong zone, facts buried under a larger story. It is a journalist's reconstruction needing open data and independent checks. Civilians often cite other clues. Missing public records of naval movements at the time, the satellite data provider's government ties fueling speculation, sudden deaths of some engineers involved in data analysis, and shifts in diplomacy and military cooperation afterward. These hints alone cannot prove anything but show the evidence gaps remain. Beyond theories and technology, the family's voices hurt most. One woman said outside court, "He is not just my husband, he is my family. Without answers, I won't stop." Others traveled across countries, filing information requests, lawsuits, and calls to restart searches. They seek not the whole truth, but some verifiable evidence. Looking back at that night, 3 things are clear. First, the minute-by-minute timeline and key points are documented. Second, there are 2 narratives, the official turn south and the civilian South China Sea first hypothesis. Third, the main gaps are the full release and independent review of original satellite data, raw radar for key segments, and the black boxes. Any breakthrough could reshape the puzzle. Rather than just a mystery, MH370 is a mirror reflecting how humanity struggles with risk, information, and power in a high-tech era. Some write poems or letters, others keep it on their to-do lists. As long as questions persist, the answers are not lost. Each disclosure and review can bring us closer to the truth. At this point, silently say the flight number once more, MH370. It is not a cold code, but the homecoming path of 239 families. They deserve our continued questions until real answers land. May the dead rest in peace, and may the living know the truth.